Coming up today on Locked On Texas Tech, the Red Raiders double up on coordinator searches as Zach Kittley leaves Lubbock.
You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Great to be with you again on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Always free and available on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. And today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. So visit FanDuel.com to get started. With the only Chris Level, I'm Casey Cowan, back again when you least expect it for another reaction episode. Catching Chris on the fly as now we flip to the other side of the line of scrimmage, Chris, following a change at defensive coordinator. By another variety now, you've got a change with your offensive coordinator as reporting indicating that Zach Kittley will be headed Florida Atlantic way for an opportunity to lead that program. Something you and I have looked ahead to as far as potentially happening, whether it's Florida Atlantic or otherwise. Shifting sands are going to be coming the way regarding opportunities for your offensive coordinator. And we see it now apparently come to fruition, man. So here we are living this enchanted Red Raider life where anything can happen at any given time, and it's never boring, right?
Yeah, I knew there was going to be things happening. I guess I just didn't know to what extent or, at what level and all that. But yeah, we're knee deep in it now, Cowan. Yeah, I mean, we are like, oh goodness. And I just think back to like how happy everybody was at the stadium on Saturday, and you just like, get some hours removed from that, and it's like it doesn't even resemble the same thing anymore, because yeah, like I don't know who's calling either side of the ball in the bowl game or next season or anything, just like that. I mean, so one obviously Joey's decision, the other one was an opportunity that Zach Kittley had, and he's going to go be a head coach, and there's only so many of those opportunities, and that'll be a hard job, but as I think it was Texas Tech was going to go play in the Cotton Bowl in 2005, and that's when Sonny and Dana were co-OCs at the time under Mike, and I remember Sonny's name got brought up for the Rice job, and this was Rice back then that had struggled mightily, and they've still kind of been that, short of a few glimpses. But I remember seeing him and I'm like, man, Rice, really? And he said to me, and I've never forgotten it, and this still holds true. He's like, Chris, there's 133 of those jobs or whatever there was at the time. He's like, if somebody wants to talk to you about one of them, you talk to them. And you don't always get to pick like what league you want to go to, where you want to live or whatever. But if you're in that business and that's your ultimate goal, and somebody wants to talk to you about one of them, that's what you do. And so, because Boca Raton's nice and all that, that'll be a tough job. But yeah, it leaves Texas Tech, a bit, I don't know, uneasy, or you feel a bit vulnerable with signing day coming up and the portal. I'm sure the phones over at that brand new, unbelievable complex are burning up right now.
Yeah, first stress test.
And it doesn't matter,
right?
Yeah. And it doesn't matter when you may be watching or listening to this, those phones will still be burning up. You're talking to, because now you're trying to make hires, and what's the domino effect of that? What you're trying to hold on to your current roster, everything like that. And the bowl game seems like an afterthought at this point on trying to just figure out like what that is going to look like. But, I think Zach's going to end up with a 5-year contract. I think he's going to make over $1 million a year. I think, like he did here, I think he'll end up taking less money there so he can put more staff around him. I wouldn't be surprised if one of two former Red Raiders, either Jared Castor or Stephen Hamby, are his O-line coach. I think that he will take some people from Texas Tech. I don't think it will be any on the field assistance. I think it will be some, in your analyst, graduate assistant type roles. I have told you that I thought he would have opportunities, and here was one, and it was offered to him, and he took it. And everybody's working really fast, because if you're now Florida Atlantic, you're like, we got to make a hire. We want to keep our players from getting into the portal and cruising and leaving and all that stuff. And now if you're Texas Tech, it's like, okay, now we've got both sides of the ball. We're trying to keep everybody chilled out and hey, don't, it's going to be fine. And there's just a lot to manage, but that's why these guys make the kind of money that they do. But you just thought the season was stressful, but welcome to the crazy season when the regular season ends, and then everybody wants to be a part of winning and turning whatever they've got going around or maintaining it or whatever it may be. But here we are, man.
That's right. That translates to there is no off season in this here thing called college sports, really, not just football, but football's at the forefront right now. To your knowledge, had he had any other in prior years, prior calendars since his arrival at Texas Tech, head coaching interviews or conversations, or did he just after this year or as it was winding down kind of begin to enter that type of category? I know there have been OC opportunities, left and right for him. But as a head coach, was this one of the first, or do you know of any others that had kind of been kicking the tires?
I think there was some last year, one in particular, and I don't think I think he was in the mix. I don't think it was super serious. I think he's had plenty of opportunities to be an OC elsewhere in the Power Four leagues. I think there was some interest from Oklahoma in him, and to which I think that he wasn't interested. I think he did not want to. He wasn't going to leave here to be a coordinator somewhere else. If he was ever going to leave Texas Tech, which is his alma mater and all those things, it was going to be for a head job. But this one was pretty serious from the get-go, and I think they had kind of had their mind made up. I guess we're finding out now, really all along, and I think when he got there and interviewed, I think they actually kind of said, "Hey, won't you cancel your flight home?" I think that's pretty good indication that he was probably going to be offered the job. And that's ultimately I think what happened. But I have not talked to Zach, but I wish him well, and I'll miss him. I know everybody's got a different opinion out there on things, and those are all over the board. But I think he did a good job here, and I think he'll be missed. And he took a lot less money than what he could have made elsewhere to be here. And anyway, he's one of us, if you will. And but I'll wish him well. And it's just like as I thought about it, it's crazy. The offensive lineage, I guess, would be the right terminology of what, because it's like Eric Morris at North Texas and Sonny is at Louisiana Tech. And, Neil had been here for 3 years, and then he was the head coach at West Virginia. And there's, Seth Dagey is the OC at Marshall. There's just, and I'm forgetting, and that doesn't, Sonny Dykes, obviously, there's some of the guys that have been doing it for a long time. Dana Holgerson. There's just so many, Lincoln Riley, so many people that have come through here that are OCs or head coaches that kind of paid their dues in Lubbock, Texas. And I'd like to think that, Mike ultimately kind of had something to do with that, but just the offensive brand and but people want to be a part of what Texas Tech has done and been about on offense for the most part. And Florida Atlantic obviously is another in a long list.
I think the number one question, if I was just tapping the general pulse of Red Raider Nation, Chris, is first, today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle all the action with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. And right now, new customers can bet only $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL and a whole lot more, all in one place. So when you get a hunch, a gut instinct in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more, all on the same page where you place your bet. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a gut feeling again, and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Is not even necessarily who's next for this position, but more so tied into on-the-field personnel. One specifically, that being a guy by the name of Will Hammond, and it's mostly because of how well discussed and documented his relationship with Zach Kittley is. I think that's the number one reason, and that really justifies a lot of interest. But then there's also that taste we got of seeing the backup quarterback, the most popular guy in any football town, a few weeks back, and he's heralded himself, obviously, as a prospect. I think highly thought of, obviously, within the program. But kind of been wondering about how this offseason would play out at that position. And that's because a lot of folks figure he's going to factor in very prominently. So whether it's him or other personnel that you could see on the move as far as the on-the-field guys go, do you think this is atypical to other situations? A higher number, a lower number? Is it going to be like any other? There could be some. What do you think about that side of it?
You're just talking about like guys on offense?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So the first thing is like, let's just talk about quarterback. Like one of the first things I looked at was like, I don't think Florida Atlantic's situation at quarterback is very good. They will be seeking help from elsewhere. Do I think that is at Baron Morton or Will Hammond? No, I don't. I don't think Zach would do that. One, he just wouldn't. Out of respect to Tech and to Joey and all those things, and those guys, I don't think would want to play at that level anyway. So could a Jake Strong go? There, yeah. But okay, so that's the thing. As far as like just what that means for a quarterback here, this is going to be a pretty attractive because you have not one but two quarterbacks, and that's really what I think an OC is going to want to like. Either I need to have somebody there, or I've got to have somebody that I could bring with me, because you're going to be expected to win right away and do well right away. I mean, you're about to replace the guy that was scoring 38 points a game and it was 450 yards a game and all that stuff, like 8th and 10th in the country on offense. And
it's going to be year 4 for your head coach.
And it's worth pointing out this is tricky for Coach McGuire in that I don't want to say you're like starting over, but to replace both coordinators is a bit tricky.
I'd say so.
It just is. I'm not saying you're like starting over or like you're hitting the reset button, but that's a bit tricky. And that it could be great. It could be mixed. It could be like, okay. I mean, and my guess would be somewhere in the middle that it's a bit mixed in that terminology, scheme, personnel fit. There's just a lot that goes into this stuff, and sometimes it takes a bit. So to answer your question on like, okay, offensive guys, because I go back to Will Hammond. He came here to play in Zach Kittley's offense. That's the one guy that Coach Blanchard and his staff, Brian Nance, Sean Kinney, like the whole personnel department, Wesley Harwell, all those guys, they do a really good job. And I think that is attractive to some coaches in that, I got to come here and I can just coach ball. I don't have to really like mess with a lot of that stuff. You're just going to tell me who to go visit and seal the deal on and all that stuff. I think that's probably attractive to some. To others, it may not be. It may be like, man, if it's my product out there and I'm not getting to pick the people, that's a bit tricky. We've mentioned the Bill Parcells quote from a week or so ago. It's like, okay, you're asking me to cook the meal, but I don't get to shop for the groceries, that he famously said several years ago. But I would like to think that somebody like Will Hammond will, sit tight for a bit. And I don't think he's like going to leave, but I think he would sit tight and want to see what is in place and what style is going to be hired, who you're going to bring in here, how they utilize a quarterback. Do I fit with what is going to happen here? And that's why the portal is open from December the 9th to I think December the 28th. So there'll be some time here. You just hope that, and that's, I'm sure, what, as much as the phones are ringing, you're sitting in front of your own players going, catch your breath, like just sit tight, give us a little time, which is tricky because then the vultures are swirling going, hey, get him on the phone, call his coach, call his high school coach, get him on the phone. All that, and this is not just going on here, but I mean, don't you know that everybody's calling people at UCF and West Virginia and Purdue, and I'm forgetting all the ones, and potentially Florida Atlantic. Anytime there's a coaching change, it's like, well, there's a fresh batch. Do we like anybody off the roster? What's their PFF grade? All that stuff. So we'll just kind of have to see what this looks like. I think you could have lost some people in the portal anyway, regardless if everything stayed put. But now it could be different because of what you bring in here. Is who you bringing in? Are they attached to anybody? Does anybody want to come with them? All that kind of on the table. But I think it's a very good question, and that's where my brain starts to go immediately when you start talking about coordinators and all that. But I just knew like Will Hammond is really one of the only guys that Zach was that was the first full recruiting cycle, and he identified him, got him, built a great relationship and all that. So it's like all these people, I just have found it, some of the commentary out there, people just don't understand, I guess, but it's like, yeah, Zach Kittley and they're hampering Will Hammond he'll really get to play now that Zach's gone. No, that was his guy. That they're connected. So,
but you don't feel like that's coming into play as far as a potential transfer.
I don't. I think he will stay here until he sees kind of what the next step and what and think about like Barron too, man. I mean, what's Barron got to be thinking right now? Here I am, established. I've had a pretty damn good year, and I'm going into my senior year. And now the guy that believed in me, that I played for all year, I mean, Barron would be extremely attractive out there on the open market for somebody. That's just how this stuff works. People can turn their season around very quickly with the right quarterback. And so I would like to think that that's not on the table just yet. I think luckily, Barron is a homegrown guy. He's a tech guy and all that stuff. And I would think that Will Hammond is, at peace right now. But that's just me speculating, Calvin. I can't pretend to know what he or anybody would want or who would be trying to sneak around the chicken coop and initiate a conversation. Because if you don't think that kind of stuff happens, you're just kidding yourself. That's how this stuff works. And there's plenty of workarounds on all this stuff too, where you're not technically tampering, but you're gauging interest and all this kind of stuff.
Wow. Third bullet point on the screen, Red Raider patterns of fate. What's that mean? It means you can go 52-15 on Saturday, ride the wave of a fired defensive coordinator on Sunday, ride the wave of a transferred 5-star freshman on Sunday, ride the wave of an OC taking a new job as a head coach elsewhere on Monday. We ain't even got to Tuesday, and they call it Turn Up Tuesday for a reason, Chris. So God only knows what's to come in the next 24 hours. What a great reminder as to why you've got to be subscribed on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts, because you're definitely going to miss something otherwise. I mean, this is an action-packed week.
Yeah, and it's not going to slow down. Head on the old swivel, it's just part of the nature of the business. This one was a unique one because you made a decision, somebody else made a decision to hire one of your guys away, but when you start talking head coaches and coordinators, man, honestly, all bets are off. That's just kind of. But luckily, you have the bulk of your staff here, and you're playing in a bowl game, and so you would hope that it's not like some sort of mass exodus or anything like that. But you just don't know what you're looking at here. So we'll just kind of see what the future holds and what's in store.
The term wholesale change comes to mind for whatever that's worth, but we'll see how close we get to that, or maybe we pull up short of that whenever the dust settles. Appreciate the extra time and appreciate you guys for being out there for this reaction episode. Be sure and join us for the next one as we'll continue this conversation, looking ahead to what's next as far as the search for an offensive coordinator. We'll also get into any of the latest movement on the defensive side of things. Something's always moving out there, so don't miss that conversation because it's going to be something obviously happening on that front as things happen very, very quickly in the world of transfer portal windows, etc. So join us for that one coming up, and appreciate you being out there for this one. Special shout out to the everydayers out there for always riding along with us on Locked On Texas Tech. For Chris, I'm Casey, and we hope to see you back for the next round on Locked On Texas Tech.